Sugar, she pointed that out last night. I'm like, it's tasty.
Oh, I didn't know that was zero sugar. I'll have to get that from, my husband likes the, seasonal
I
thing.
usually don't like lemon flavor. Like I either love them or I don't like them at all.
There's no in between of lemon.
This one is
horrible.
really good.
Okay, 6 o'clock, I'd like to call to order the work session, budget work session. Lakewood City Council for Thursday, May 9th, 2024. Roll call please.
Councilmember Homa,
Here.
Councilmember Falkingham,
Here.
Councilmember Maddox. Here. Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Correll.
Here.
Councilmember Page.
Here.
Mayor Greenberg.
Here.
Mayor Quorum is present.
I'm getting this apart.
It did say.
We don't need a motion to excuse any council member. Sorry about that. My speaker's broken.
That is.
Okay.
So let's get started with the budget review.
We will start with Public Works, which begins on page 45 of your budget book. And actually, we'll skip ahead to the end and work backwards. So if I can have you looking at page
54.
54. A few items that we will call out because they are non-routine. 60400 professional services, $165,000 is budgeted for next year. That includes $150,000 for the comprehensive plan update. You all had approved this last year. It did not move forward in the budget, so we're budgeting it again for the coming fiscal year. We have already issued the RFP and received the proposals. How many have we received? Andrew?
We received only 2, but they're both from good firms. Sent it to about 15. So that'll probably be going to the planning commission on the 20th of May. And then they'll have a recommendation. So I anticipate bringing it before the city council at the first meeting. I believe it's June 14th. I don't have the calendar in front of me, but we should be ready to go first meeting in June.
This will be a community engagement heavy process for the city. Obviously, we want feedback from residents and businesses about the future of the city and what our economic development priority should be. So this will be something that will pop up on your calendars for town halls and engagement opportunities in the coming year. Another item to highlight on page 51, you'll see that per the Welcome Maplewood implementation plan, we have some specific DEIB training called for our building inspectors. So that's part of that training budget there.
How's our self-supply? We still have a lot.
Well, we use some, but we've got about a shipment and a half due next year. So we're doing fine.
We don't have winters anymore, so I don't think.
Yeah.
Pretty light.
A lot of times the small events take darn near as much in some cases.
Is that right?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. If you got an inch or you've got 6 inches, there's not, you basically use roughly the same amount. Years ago, we ended up working out an agreement that some of the newer council members aren't aware. We have some stockpiles in St. Anne. They've got a very large salt dome. We worked out an agreement with them. It's one of the old MoDOT domes that are just so massive. We probably have, I think we have 600 or 700 tons, because there are those occasional years where you just can't plan for it and you get multiple events after multiple events, and then they really jack the price up if you can even get it. So we were looking at years ago, I think Sean was on the council doing a salt dome, and we found that much cheaper method.
So we bought a bunch.
Mhm.
I really haven't needed it since.
Okay, we're gonna have that now. Then you-
Yes.
Bad.
It's not gonna go stale. If you have to buy it when you actually needed it. Oh, yeah. It's bad.
One other item that's called out in my memo is the personnel expense impact from moving a position out of Public Works into the executive budget, which was part of the staffing plan that we discussed 2 nights ago.
Looks good.
Questions about any budget items in Public Works? Anything, Anthony, you in particular would like to highlight?
No, very straightforward.
Can I make one point at one thing? If you look at like the salaries, spreadsheet portion, and then you look at like. In the salaries account line, like the 40010. I mean, or like the total for total personnel services, you'll see that like. Total personnel services is 1183569, but that doesn't actually add up to what's on the page 46 page. And that's because we've also included money for Jerry Cook is planning on retiring next year, so we put in for like. He's got, I mean, max out on vacation and sick time and all those things, so we planned for that, so we budgeted for that expense. So that's why it looks a little bit weird, because it's really not his salary, it's actually a payout when he retires, so. It's kind of,
Yeah, on page 48, 60460, you got some yellow highlighting, so repairs and maintenance. What am I looking at that suddenly goes up next year that we didn't have much of before? Is that a particular street or?
I know I highlighted it because I had that same question and have forgotten what the outcome of that conversation was.
oh, I think that was one of the questions that we had, and it was. We had in the past that some of the repairs and maintenance. For public works, it was someone's budgeted in public works and someone's budgeted in capital.
Okay,
We took all of the capital repairs and maintenance. That we had budgeted and moved it back into the general. So that way all of our capital expenses went to actual capital. And all of our general repairs and all the repairs and maintenance were actually paid for out of general. So that's why it was that big jump. And we were trying to figure out why. I know Amber was curious as to why that was. That's what that was.
okay, so just putting it in the proper bucket.
It
going
was,
forward.
yes,
Okay.
it was one of those switches that we made,
Sure.
but it made a really big jump and it was kind of
Yeah,
like,
makes sense.
why is it such a big jump? It's because we combined. The two different, so it was capital repairs and repairs to capital equipment
Mhm.
and just regular repairs and maintenance. So we
Okay.
combined the two into the public works budget.
That makes sense, thank you.
And I apologize for not calling that out in my memo. Well, if we have no more questions on Public Works, we will move on to Parks and Stormwater.
Mhm. Starts at 91.
Yeah, but 108 is the back of it.
Thank you.
Done.
So this one's a little more complex to interpret simply because we have so many different accounts in here. We've got Parks and Rec, we have got the pool, we've got capital outlay. There's a lot going on. So we'll go ahead and start on page 108. As I mentioned the first night, we have our Parks Master Plan and we have an implementation schedule. But we do not yet have particular projects identified. So what you'll see here is, for instance, Muni Park Grant FY 26-27
Mhm.
with a $440,000 expense lined out. The equivalent grant amount is already included in revenue. That being said, obviously, we would have more definition as we get closer to that budget year about what that particular project would be. We have also budgeted in what we would expect to be the necessary expense to offset any grant awarded to us through our contract with Grant Match. So that's showing in master plan improvements. That's actually a budgeted line item to pay for those services once we're awarded a grant through Grant Match. Again, it's a little hard to predict at this point which grants we'll apply for, which ones we'll get, which ones we'll apply for through Grant Match and need to pay Grant Match for, and which ones we might apply for through other sources outside of Grant Match and not need to use that budgeted revenue. So Anthony built in a cushion there to allow us to be able to fulfill those expenses if they come through. Additionally, in this account, We have budgeted for a new park shuttle bus. There are two park buses, one owned by Maplewood and one owned by Richmond Heights, and ours is beyond the point that the mechanic believes he can repair it. It works right now, but if it breaks again, we might be at a point where it's not something we can address. It is,
It's the bigger bus, 20-passenger van, that's ours. The, this, the extended passenger van is owned by Richmond Heights, and both are used quite frequently, so it's basically our turn to buck up and replace this. We've gotten a lot of use out of it. It's
Capacity, we need a 20-seater.
We
There
just go
are-
steal like an Amazon electric van.
pardon,
We just go steal like an Amazon vans.
put some new stickers on it. They're nice. But yeah, there are instances, a lot of day camps, senior trips to and from the grocery stores. It gets used probably about 1/3 the time. 2/3, it's the smaller van that is owned by Richmond Heights, but there are definitely times we do use the larger van. We looked into the past that if it wasn't used much, it possibly leasing one instead of paying for one.
Mm.
And we met with Richmond Heights. It's used on a weekly basis, so it doesn't make sense to rent or temporarily lease one of those.
this expense is appearing on page 106. You'll see that there are also the corresponding allocations for the truck upgrades. Portion came out of capital, a portion comes out of Parks Capital. Those are indicated in the spreadsheet. Oh, yes, yeah. So down toward the bottom of that page, 106, we have automatic locks for park restrooms. I think some of you might be aware that we hire part-time seasonal labor to lock and unlock our bathrooms at the parks. As much as we love having those folks in our lives, I'm not sure that they love every weekend having to go to the parks to lock and unlock. So we're going to invest in automatic locks for that purpose. That can be programmed remotely.
That's cool.
A one-time cost to remove long-term costs around that casual labor.
While they're doing that, is it possible to install exterior cameras at those locations?
We have cameras at Deer Creek and Hummert. Do we have any at the other parks, Anthony?
No, but it's possible to do so. We've just updated our cameras at the pool. And we could continue to expand that network. Right now, I know the police you probably heard from Chief Nyber that they're still working on those upgrades. Those police cameras are a little bit more, take a higher priority right now. So once they get that system up to speed, then we could add to it. We could definitely do so. I think Kellogg Park would probably be the next one we would want to, because it's got a pavilion, and then we also have, it'd be nice to have one on the dog park. We've actually had that in prior years' budgets, but we wanted to get the other camera issues resolved before we added to that network. That would be our next camera. We could definitely eventually get them at every park if need be. But the parks with a pavilion, it's very nice to have it, because that's usually where you'll get vandalism.
Bus shelter might be good to be on that list too, if there's not anyone down there.
There's not.
I don't know.
There's one at Bellevue.
Only looks at license plates.
Yeah, there's,
Oh, okay.
there's one at
Sure,
Bellevue, I
anything.
believe. A flock camera there's one at Bellevue right there in Manchester,
Mhm.
but doesn't catch
Yeah, just like-
where it needs to catch, honestly.
yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
The bus stop and make it with liquor.
For the pool, the aquatic center budget, obviously fairly consistent expenses there in terms of maintenance of the pool. On page 102, we do see an increase, principally due to the need to construct an equipment house for the splash pad equipment. that needs to be covered.
Yeah, this has been in there for at least a year, but we've basically had our the cost we had was so extravagant for such a small building. It was well over $100,000. Couldn't believe it. This is essentially just to house the splash pad operating system, which is designed to be unhoused and essentially exposed to the elements, but considering the cost, we want to have that under roof and figure get a lot longer life out of that. We've been working with staff, actually, Mayor Greenberg ended up drafting some plans, so we're going to try to build it in-house. We'll probably save at least $50,000, and we're hoping to do it this fall. And we're also working with a welder in town. We're looking at actually kind of having a pipe system, and then we're going to basically cover that shell. So we're trying to get it to look somewhat similar to what our addition over at the where the former firehouse bay was. So we anticipate that this fall. We're going to do it in-house, save a lot of money.
And can you give me an idea of like where that would be located?
If you're walking out to go into the pool area, it's between the splash pad and
The
and
women's.
you can see all the, it's
Yes.
sitting right out there in the
So
open.
you're just gonna
We're
do
gonna
it-
just put a
Oh,
small,
Okay.
basically a small 4 walls and a roof. That's it. We'll probably have a window in one of those, so if you're in there and you're adjusting it, you can still see how high and how hard you're turning it on and off. Because you
Okay.
can crank those up a little bit. We usually keep them the same.
Good thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
For the parents chasing after toddlers. I mean,
you wanted to mess around with people, you
Yeah.
could squirt them.
Very well on that one.
We've also allocated for replacement of the sound system at the pool,
Yeah.
which is a system that only can play the radio. Can't hook up a device to it to play any other music. So it's basically just a receiver that we need to update.
Are we gonna have, I think last year we had our own lifeguards instead of going for the service, you know?
That will continue
Mhm.
hopefully in perpetuity, because it's
It's
going
much
very well.
easier, yeah.
We've had far fewer complaints. And I really want to give the Parks Department or the Park Cooperative, Molly at the Heights. She and Lindsay, who also operates our pool, they did a fantastic job. We coordinated with the school during PE. We did a few of those things. We did massive PR. One of the biggest things we did that really helped is we had one of our own employees certified. So we were offering classes and they were already at our pool, and then they were planning on perhaps working for Webster or a pool in Sunset Hills or West County or wherever. And once they realized, hey, you're certified, you want to work for Maplewood, that really brought in a
Smart.
significant amount. We get about a 40 to 60%, just fluctuates on your retention basis where they come back each and every year. So we're through that hump.
Mhm.
I don't see that we're gonna have, at least I hope, I don't anticipate any issues with getting lifeguards for the foreseeable future. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Right. Some real wood there.
Make you nervous.
And moving up to page 98. Additional expenses related to our park agreement. I have been in conversation with Richmond Heights about the potential of wanting to renegotiate our park agreement. We received a very good deal on our partnership. I think we probably received more value than we paid for. So
All of those quite maybe would seem.
Pick the one, an AB green or
Yeah,
whatever. it is.
we counted once. We had like 11. They
That's
have
like the
one.
size of this room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
but that may be a conversation that they wish to pursue in the next couple of years.
Need you in the agreement, in the room, discussing that it's all us.
Did they have any major deferred maintenance for the house?
Well, they had a pretty significant sewer line break. But I think in terms of deferred maintenance beyond that, we're in good shape.
Probably about a year ago, they completely reconstructed their entire indoor pool complex.
Money for that.
It was an inconvenience to make with residents.
We should get a discount.
Prorate it.
It's a good partnership though, which is nice and
Yeah, they can afford to give us some value.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Solid argument.
$30 million
Another good
budget,
argument.
they're gonna be,
Be involved in
fine.
negotiations. Really putting you all on the list.
No, no, you're not.
Okay.
How often do you bid out the grass cutting contract?
every 3 years. We just bid it out most recently in April.
yeah, Kendall does it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, they do a nice job.
Do a fantastic job.
In this account, we are budgeted to spend less next year than we forecasted this year. But again, we see some fluctuations year over year based on the investments that we're projecting, sorry, on page 92. Some of the investments we're planning to make in implementation of the Parks Master Plan.
Or, with regards to the mosquito control, we have that budgeted, I don't know, if sustainability is looked at that. I would personally want to take it out.
Not to my knowledge, I've looked at it. But I do know that over the years, we get fewer and fewer calls. I can't think of the year we changed it, but I believe you were on the council maybe at that time. We used to spray citywide. We probably cut that back about 7 years ago to more targeted areas. And so now they actually have to call for a specific area. We only go out so far. We've tried to promote prevention, meaning, go in your backyard and find out where there's small ponds, because they can breed in some of the smallest areas. They have larvicide. They offer all these services as part of this agreement, where they'll go out and put dunks in certain areas that are cause issues. But I would say it's probably about 50-50 as far as the calls we get. Some people want more spraying and other people don't want any. So it could be something the Sustainability Commission could look at, but I don't believe they've looked at it.
I think
To my knowledge.
all the pollinators that we've created in April are going to get killed by the permethrin spray.
You could just pay me that 4,400 to walk around neighborhood because mosquitoes love me.
It is
So
complicated.
why don't you just attract them from everywhere else?
Public health, I mean. Mosquitoes definitely breed disease. You gotta be careful of mosquitoes.
Vector control is very effective. though.
No, I know it's not. There's not a good answer. I don't love it either.
Give
I
people
just-
bad houses, that's what I have. We had
Yeah,
about 6 or 7 bats.
You really?
Mhm.
But then you have bats.
That's a great.
Yeah.
So many mosquitoes.
Yeah, they eat a ton of mosquitoes.
But they're bats.
Yeah, bats are cool.
Okay, well, see,
I
I'm
love
still,
bats.
Yeah, we
still
get
stuck
birds.
in the bat
I got a ton
situation.
in my backyard.
I love bats.
I do
Why
not.
would I have mosquitoes?
I still have.
Bats are one of the most dangerous.
So what happens if I call up St. Louis County
Get rabies.
and say I want to spray
They don't mess with humans.
and we don't have it in our budget?
This is a good example. Everyone's got different, I mean, this is it. It's kind of like, but I told Amber today, we were talking about, streetlights, no streetlights. You have people that think it's too bright. You have others. It's the same thing with like, the trees that have been butchered by Ameren, some want them removed, others are, how can you touch it? I mean, it's one of those subjects where it's kind of all over the place.
Right, but I mean, if we took it out of the budget and a resident called because they think they need to be sprayed, what happens?
We wouldn't spray it.
They wouldn't spray, they just say,
Correct.
sorry, here.
Correct.
So well,
Yeah, we signed a contract with them. And again, but
The
Sorry.
county has no responsibility. All of our property taxes
Okay.
that go to the county and,
you still have to pay for this service,
okay,
you know.
intriguing.
They take care of me because I'm unincorporated city.
Oh, nice.
I'm a little popular.
That would work great for you in this scenario.
They really don't come and spray for me. That
You
don't.
can specify that they don't spray near your vehicle and it'd be very susceptible to to
Yeah.
the agents they use. And so when you come down the street, they.
No, I get that. I'm just genuinely surprised that even though we are in St. Louis County and they have a responsibility to public health in this scenario, that they're just kind of like, sorry, I thought y'all.
They need, what's interesting is a lot of times when we get the complaints, they'll usually go out sometimes to the resident and find out that maybe like their gutters are backed up.
Sure, yeah.
And it turns out that that's
Just
where
flush
it
it
is.
Yeah,
That service that they provide where they actually go out and do exploratory, they look around, it's amazing. How you can really control the population.
Mhm.
They'll find, garbage can lids turned upside down that have been sitting there for extended periods of time, or. Just anywhere you have stagnant water, they can really create some problems.
What about,
real fast.
Mhm.
what about creating the contract where we do all their other services, but not spray?
I'm sure that's probably an option. We could look into that.
I think it's a great thing for the sustainability to take on as that's like.
Yeah, oh, no, yeah, like, I mean, that's sustainability, but I mean-
Anti-mosquito stuff, right?
We can
You
say
never-
there's an option where
It's really dangerous.
We'll provide them coming out, dunks, but not spray.
It's different mosquitoes, yeah.
I will talk to our staff liaison tomorrow. I'll talk to our staff liaison tomorrow and make sure he brings it up and puts it on the next sustainability commission agenda. I'll let him know the entire council seemed interested in it. And then I'll mention the hybrid.
That'd be a better way to do it than just, yes.
I could see a need for it near Deer Creek and the park.
Yeah.
Maybe I could see a need for those areas, but
No, it's coming.
Any further questions about parks? We'll move to page 112, sewer lateral. As I mentioned in my memo, council has made a commitment to repairing as many sewer laterals as we possibly can. It's a real serious issue, given the age of our housing stock in Maplewood. That being said, we are consistently outspending our revenue in this account and have been subsidizing it from the general fund in order to meet those needs. Our auditors have called this out, asking why we continue to do this. So we wanted to point the conversation in that direction tonight around council's feelings about us trying to stay within our means and doing fewer projects per year, or continuing to subsidize this account out of the general fund.
These numbers don't really help me understand how many homes this means.
So it's not really necessarily homes, right? So it is, we had a backlog of homes, and you caught up on your backlog now. So we had a backlog of homes, so that's where these big numbers are.
Sure, I'm with you there.
Now it's more of, and that was, if you have. And it was because of the home inspection. Everybody, if you have a break in your line,
Yeah.
whether you have a backup or not, there's a break in your line, we will repair you. Sure. So we weren't waiting until there was a backup. We were
Sure.
doing it ahead of time. Now it's more of an approach of how we repair it.
Mhm.
And that's what we need to determine, right, Anthony? And so it's, do you repair the spot or do you repair the whole? The line, because you know that, I mean, it's a clay pipe, that there's a tree,
More than one spot's gonna be.
there's a tree right here and the line goes right here. So that it's gonna, if it's not broken there yet, it's gonna be soon. You fix it all, right?
It's really.
Is that what you're saying? Like, there's a tree here and the line goes through here. You know that it's if it's not broken yet, it's going to be broken soon. So do you just fix it all while you're there? Or do you wait until someone then says, well, it's broken now, fix this, and then
2 years later.
2 years later, go back and fix that?
The problem is this legislation's been in place for probably 30 years and $50 has been the cap
Sure.
that long. And there's just not an appetite countywide because there's so many munis that have PVC and don't really run into the same problems. We also have a lot of very large trees. You can just walk by and see sycamore trees planted in a tree lawn, many of them planted right over a sewer lateral. They didn't think about that back in the day. So it's really not, it's not sustainable. I will say from a housing affordability standpoint. It's possible if you've got to dig up a driveway, or you've got to dig up a set of stairs. Stairs are extremely expensive to do that finishing concrete work. Or there's retaining walls, or the lateral is very deep. You can have a sewer lateral cost up to $10,000-12,000. Our average one probably costs $2,500 to $3,500. And the main reason it is that reasonable is because we meaning city staff does the excavation and the restoration work. If
Mhm.
we were contracting it out, there's no way we could get even half of the ones we have done. So there was one other option that wasn't mentioned, and there is a possibility if we want to cap something. Most cities do have a cap. We are one of the few that do not have a cap. But again, you do run to that risk where, it's possible it could cause some serious financial problems for somebody if they all of a sudden get a sewer lateral bill for $12,000 and our cap is $5,000.
So are we hitting at least 25 residential sewer laterals a year?
Probably more like 30 or 35.
We're charging a tax for someone to have a sewer lateral repaired. I think it's our obligation, like, to repair a sewer lateral. Anybody, if you haven't been in that situation, it's probably not a big deal to you. If you have been in that situation, it is probably one of the worst things that you've gone through.
Yeah.
And so for me, I mean,
Absolutely.
I would be all for putting more money into that and making sure that we don't have that issue, because that becomes a sanitary, there's a lot of other things that comes on with that, so. If I had to lose some money as a city to go, hey, we're making sure that we're staying sanitary, we're taking care of our people, I think that's probably a big one in my opinion.
Do we have a thing where like the tube gets inserted into the existing pipe? Sleeve, sorry.
We line any chance, lining is very expensive, but we do line, we typically will line so we mentioned if there's a break. Historically, we would just do the break
Mhm.
and that's it. Now, if we see that the clay runs under, for example, a set of steps, or we see it runs under a driveway or potentially a porch.
Yeah.
We will line up to there. So we've been going a little more than we used to.
Mhm.
I mean, there are cities that will literally line the entire line, which is clearly makes the most sense. You'll never have to come back there.
Mhm.
But if we did that,
Every single
we'd be
time.
doing
Yeah.
10 a year instead of 35 a year. So we have done that. There's been some instances behind Folk. There was one running down an alley. We had a 60-foot excavation and they were going to line it. We went out and dug it ourselves. I mean, we try to do what we can ourselves. But we've been short-staffed over the last few years, so we have unfortunately had to contract a little bit more out.
So from what you're saying, just given the age and nature of our infrastructure, it's not a scenario of, oh, okay, we're good, and we're gonna level off with the fix. You just kind of see more.
I don't know if that's necessarily true, because Lexi really touched on it. 12-15 years ago, that's when these started becoming part of home sale inspections. So a lot of these minor breaks that you may never have any problems, it could flow that way for
Yeah.
another 50 or 75 years.
Yeah, because mine
As-
level at the base, but it still works.
Yeah, as you have home sales and as these problems are identified,
Yeah.
it's theoretically possible it could taper down. I don't see that in the very near future, though.
Thank you.
So the amount of money in this budget is that just a direct reflection of the revenue from the tax? That it's just a one for one?
Correct. Well, no, other money does go into it, so
Only when we go over, or we're also.
only when we go.
We budget in capital.
We
Yeah.
do, so we're subsidizing the tax.
Yes.
And we're going over that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we subsidize it up to that point. I mean, this is going back probably.
I'm seeing the budget number. The budget number represents just the revenue.
Yes.
That's the correct statement. So all that overage out of capital is just represents more than what the tax is.
Correct.
So it's right.
On the MST matrix, what percentage of the municipalities have sewer lateral programs?
I believe nearly everyone in the county. I don't have the answer for that, but every municipality in the county, to my understanding, is part of that program.
If you did the math, and we tried to place a cap on, on the expenditures, what do you think that cap would be? Because I see municipalities all over the place,
It-
7,500, 10,000,
Mhm.
5,000.
It truly is all over the place. A lot of, again, because we do, so if you see 5,000, that would probably cover 95% of them. Again, because we do the excavation and restoration, one of our sewer lateral projects, that's probably $3,500 would probably cost us $7,000 if we contracted that out. I haven't gone through those numbers, but I could easily get our average. I could easily find out what other cities do and try to figure out how many
Yeah.
anomalies there are.
Yeah, mainly what I'm trying to figure out is if we establish a cap at a certain point, what would that cap have to be so that we could pay for the sewer lateral program out of the money that's allocated for it?
I don't have a number for that right now, but I could get one.
And I know like some cities do, I think they do, I know some cities do like you pay a percentage, like you pay.
Yeah.
Just a
Percentage makes
10%.
more sense.
Like you pay 10% of the overall cost, whatever that, you know what I mean? So, or maybe it's a cap and a percent.
Yeah.
A cap and then.
Pay
a
up to
percentage.
3,500 or 4,000 is the cap.
You know, or we pay 3,500 or 5,000 and then you pay 10% of anything above that, or, you know what I mean? Maybe it's a
I
combination.
mean, that makes more sense
To,
because
to
it's,
try to limit to stay within our range, but to try to also not have residents not be burdened with,
Yeah.
like you're saying, a $12,000 sewer lateral. I wouldn't want that. I mean, I get it. I
Yeah.
just, we have to think of a way to make it work too.
But in essence, everyone else is paid for that sewer lateral.
Yes,
And so, you know, I know we don't want to burden individuals, but. Yeah, obviously we have concerns about. How to keep the budget under control.
I think just a cap, I don't know, I don't like just a cap. I'm okay with some sort of a percentage model over a cap. Like the homeowner only pays 10%. You're getting something, but for someone who has a giant bill. And yeah, it's,
and that might make us feel to stay within within our revenue numbers too. If we have a-
planning answer. We capped at 5 and said we split it after that, whatever.
staff can crunch some numbers
Yeah, we do.
for future. We can easily pull out pull these bills out and we can start to try to do a little deep dive, a little analysis into it. I'm hearing paid up to a certain number, and then once it reaches that certain number, a percentage is what I'm hearing. At least we're looking for some. I can work on that.
The other question I had with the whole idea of like, oh yeah, we'll cover up $5,000 and then after that 50/50.
Well, I'm also noticing that the tax was approved in 1997.
Right.
And it's $28 like this.
Hey, why don't you say
It's 50 now.
50,
Yeah.
so it's gone up.
Yeah. And you can't. and we
Good, as it
can't-
should,
Do
because
we-
that's
but
1997.
I guess my question though is like,
So that's it.
April 8th, April 8th.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Then scroll over far enough, guys, sorry.
I guess the only question I have is there a clear understanding of a general cost range when you start a replacement? Because the one thing I'm thinking about is like a scenario of thinking, oh, this is gonna be $4,000, okay, I don't have money to cover this, then. 2 days later into it, you go, oh, actually, this one's gonna be $9,000 and you're on the hook for half of $4,000.
We don't really have that problem for the
Okay.
most part because we have when you camera this, you know how deep
Okay,
it
cool.
is, you know exactly where the
Perfect.
break is. We do exploratory work before we start.
Okay, thank you.
I think,
Is
I
that,
just want to reiterate, yeah, I mean, I've a cap or a percentage, I think it's like, what I don't want to see is just another factor. Like you cleared up a massive.
oh, amazing, yeah,
Massive crazy thing that
Yeah.
happened to us where we were so backlogged, and that to me, I think is just the important part. I think keeping it reasonable and within budget is. Something we should.
That's important. It's important to note. That's why the council decided, hey, let's go ahead and make this a budgeted
let's
item.
get it done. Yeah.
But again, when the auditors are asking them, play devil's advocate, the auditors are saying, you're not supposed to keep borrowing this money without having some plan to repay it. I think that's
Yeah.
the issue.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I want people to bear in mind that the median income in Maplewood is below the national average.
Mhm.
That the vast majority of the people here could never afford,
Yes.
even 10% of some cap as
Yeah.
well. So
No, That's why I said, I mentioned it, one of the things, it's interesting, people think about large trees. If you buy a home and all of a sudden a very large tree pack dies, it's possible you could spend $5,000-6,000 on a tree. I mean, there's certain things that you're talking about housing affordability.
Yeah.
That people don't think about sewer laterals. I mean, you can really
Yeah,
get
but
up
you gotta
there.
dig and put pipes in the ground. It's expensive.
Yeah,
And is it on the responsibility of the citizen to still get the camera, to get it cameraed
they
first?
get a camera
or-
first, yes.
And submit it to the
And
city?
that's all they pay for, and everything else is 100% covered, and that's the issue. We do that because we had so many people that would tell us there was an issue, and then it turned out there were baby wipes or tree roots or some other issues, so there needed to be some skin in the game. And it's not too bad. I mean, it's a couple hundred, maybe $250, but when they find out, there is a break, they find out it's covered.
Did you see an uptick with the recent utility exchange with Duluth company? Did you see an uptick in
Yeah.
laterals?
We had one or maybe two that have been hit so far. We had some downspouts.
Not that they did something wrong, but when they were digging to replace their,
Yes, just a handful.
mine was one of them, so
Yeah.
that's why I was asking how many did.
Not a lot, but
Okay.
we have had that. I mean, when they're doing that, there are some issues. I mean, people don't realize right now, I'm actually dealing with, do you remember the home on Lindover that we just demolished?
Yeah,
Well, that lateral that was closed and capped, was attached to two other adjacent homes. So there are a lot of homes in town where the laterals, Laura Miller's house went into a cave.
No.
And she'd been paying MSD for many, many, many years
oh,
with the assumption.
Yeah.
So there's actually quite a few.
What about, I
caves in
mean,
town.
I thought we also had one that went into a septic.
feel like
system.
Yeah, the apartment or the building on Lanham in Manchester, it went down into a cistern and we kept looking for the MSD had it shown on their base maps that it's attached to the sewer. We
Yeah.
dug and dug and dug and couldn't find it. And we finally figured out it's going into a cistern, which you think that building is like over 100 years old, so.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's a lot of, so
yeah.
when they do hit something like that, you think, how could they do so? Well,
Maps get
there's,
wrong.
the maps are usually, the base maps are usually wrong. And if you think back to the age of some of these homes, just to have plumbing was
Big deal.
a big expense, so. Hey, I'll go ahead and attach it, your neighbors would attach it just to
Nobody
say.
cared over there.
Right here at the other end.
No, there was a
It's
cave
here.
That's-
Kind of far now, it's distance. I'll go help them.
That's why I didn't do the first house that I had a contract on, because the MSD couldn't show that it was connected to the pipes, and I'm like,
Anytime they mention the base map show, I immediately am skeptical.
well, they couldn't even show me on the base map. They're like, well, I'm sure it is. I'm like, well, I'm glad you're sure. I'm not sure.
If the data shows also that like 98% of these sewer laterals are under $5,000, like. If you set your cap around there, you're still covering the majority of most, and if whatever your percentage is.
Yeah.
We can come up with some numbers.
It falls
We can
into-
come up with some numbers that I think everyone's under the same page that we don't want to create a situation where it's a massive burden on people. That's the last thing we're trying to do here, but maybe we could look at some options to potentially alleviate some of the cost overages.
And we will bring those back to you. They may not be ready for draft 2 proposal, but certainly they would be before the final. Then we'll wrap up looking at our solid waste budget.
Do we have the revenue that we get? Do you have that number?
Oh, yeah, for solid waste?
Yeah.
Or for sewer lateral? The solid waste revenue is on page 18.
For 24-25, we're projected to receive $677,600.
With expenses that is 740,000. We have currently a very advantageous terms in our contract with for public services, really better than any other municipality.
Yeah, why wouldn't they structure the contract the same way the last time we did it?
Because we did it right before significant cost increases, and particularly China Sword with the recycling where they quit taking recyclables. So we were very lucky from a timing standpoint.
Yeah,
When we
right.
negotiated we had a 5-year contract. So unfortunately, we're gonna lose that. And we've gone around and looked at, we've got all the most recent contracts from Republic. these are estimates, but these are estimates based on neighboring cities. Good example is Richmond Heights, right? I mean, it's gonna be very comparable. We have, for everyone's knowledge, we have a property tax that we put on for trash and essentially every business, every home, every apartment complex pays into this, and then essentially we turn that around and get an advantageous rate for residents. Right now, that is gonna have to be, it's gonna be a council's decision on whether they want to pass along costs to residents or whether they want to go ahead and try to increase that again. We have to go up for proposition.
Sorry to interrupt you. Is there a way to structure that where it's concessions where we still get the advantageous idea of it's, you get the whole market, you get the concession, but everybody's paying that, that just means you have to use that vendor. We're not paying the tab. Was that something that's a,
Well, for example, businesses are paying into it right now and they still have to pay for their own trash service. That's why it becomes advantageous. Very large scale apartment complexes are paying for it, but we only do trash up to 4 units and more and recycling 12.
Gotcha.
So that's where the tax and when we did, it was Prop T, I believe we did a while back. We can send out the literature. We can also send out the literature on Prop S, which was sewer lateral when we increased it. But we have those numbers and it's very easy to send to taxpayers. It's easy to say, hey, vote for this and this is what your bill will be roughly. Or don't, and this is what your bill would be if you have to pay for it yourself.
We did last time.
Yep,
With
that makes
that,
a ton of sense, yeah.
I mean,
I think most people will say
They
absolutely.
just want to deal.
I'd be really kind of interested, we won't be able to get these numbers, we'd have to go to the public. I wanna know about the volume of trash collected.
I get monthly reports. I can send those
Does it
out.
go up? Does it stay stable? Cause we're
It-
getting
it-
people who are
it
more
fluctuates.
composting, recycling, et cetera. So I was wondering, like, are we actually seeing the same or an increased volume of work that they have to do? Cause I put a trash truck out, I put a can out once a month.
No, it's mostly
I live alone.
personnel cost.
Yeah.
Had to, in order to keep, just like I'm telling you, I'm having problems keeping employees.
Like school
It's
bus drivers.
dramatically increased,
Yeah.
but again. You have to look at, as city manager Whitaker was talking about,
Mhm.
when we signed our 5-year
We looked
contract,
into it.
almost within 4 months after. Prices started
Mhm.
going through the roof, so we got lucky, and believe me. Our public rep keeps bringing that up. One thing that every year they try to take it away, and actually, that was when I was doing the acting role still. I pulled away and said, fine, we're gonna go with somebody else. I had to go back and forth and do the dance. They really want to get rid of bags and tags. That service we offer, we're basically it, and every year they come back and try to say,
Oh,
we
you
wanna
pay
get
for
rid-
road
well,
yard waste.
it's a pain because they have to basically go through the entire city to try to find out if somebody put, 2 small bags out.
They would prefer everybody else paying, is that,
They'd prefer that
Everyone pays for the
you pay
service.
for the service.
oh yeah, I forgot to pay for that, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, you pay for it all the time. Or you
So
decide.
they're not,
Oh, I use it, but
they're not worried about you, they're worried about somebody that might put out a few bags
I get it.
every year.
That's me.
Yeah, and that would be me too. And so, but they have to go through the entire city to check those out. I'm just telling you.
Boss, right?
It's a huge cost.
You get that, mistakes.
These are the types of things that
Yeah.
as we're negotiating a new agreement that, are possibly, there may be a give and take there. But my recommendation would be to keep it because the residents love it.
We got some companies that choose to do that, I have to pay for it.
December 31st, yeah.
Service.
Is there a way though, like, would they maybe be willing to do, like, instead of like like instead of like a trash dumpster, do like a yard waste dumpster? So like people that don't
Look
pay
at
for
that.
that service, that would do like a bag and tag,
Central collection.
that would do like a central collection, like someone like you, that you could take your yard waste instead of putting it out to the curb, just take it like in
Sure.
a yard waste bag, like a Home Depot bag, and just put it in the
I will tell
Yard
you
waste dumps?
from personal experience, Mel Condo Complex did that. They had a yard waste.
I don't
dump,
know, I don't.
And it was reasonably okay for much of the year. It was horrible the last week of December because one of their brother dumped Christmas trees.
Yeah.
But the other problem is like, I don't wanna have to put yard waste bags in my car and
I
drive
guess that's
somewhere.
true.
There's also illegal dumping issues. Anytime you
Yeah.
have a central
guess
collection
that's
area, you have that.
It's a
Yeah.
good idea, but like it's also.
I don't know, I
Yeah.
live in condo, I don't do yard
Yeah.
waste.
Is it's very, I mean, we would like, I mean, from a staff perspective. I take it the council, you hear complaints. You're gonna always get complaints with this type of service, but they're very limited. Republic does a fantastic
Yeah.
job. So that doesn't mean you're not gonna get a complaint here or there.
Yeah,
But I've worked places before where we've had a hauler where you're getting nonstop complaints. And I can tell you, our new rep, probably in the last 4 years, I'm not joking,
They got rid of Frank. Oh, what was the one is his name or Tom Frank?
We had,
That-
Tony Lamonta.
Yeah.
well, something.
Yeah, and then we had Joel Aguirre and now, yeah, our
Oh,
new
we
rep.
don't have Joel?
So all I'm saying is, it's, it's gonna be one of those things where I've already spoken with Amber about it. We're probably gonna start this well in advance, probably start, I think I have it on my calendar, start in June. In case we do have to go out for bid,
Yeah.
When's the end of the contract? Like you said it.
December
December.
31st.
So if I'm
And-
looking at, okay, sorry,
I was just going to note, if we would be looking at a potential increase, that's something that, a tax increase. We want to be able to propose that, do some public education, but propose that at our tax rate hearing.
yeah. So if I'm looking at page 111. So basically the difference for me as a homeowner would be. Is that $11 a year difference, $11 a month? What are we talking?
We don't know yet.
those are monthly.
I don't know that we can do
Oh,
anything in September, though. I don't think we can do anything in September. Don't we have to pass the tax rate increase?
Pardon?
Wouldn't we have to pass the tax rate increase?
No, I'm talking about negotiating the new
Right,
contract.
but we wouldn't be able to do anything for the tax rate increase, like change the tax rate in September. We'd have to.
No,
go
they
out
vote
for-
to the people.
Yeah, I'd have to go.
They
out
vote
for
to the
a vote.
people, it'd be a proposition.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I was thinking about.
You
this.
know, and we never talked about that, and I was thinking about that, but then it just occurred to me about, so it'd be,
So that timing will line up if you start that process in June and it's a.
No, it'll be a little behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not the end of the world to be behind, because then I mean, it's unfortunate, you have a few months there theoretically where you'd be
You're paying
eating
out
some
of pocket.
cost, yeah.
Yeah,
But at least you would have solid numbers 5 years out.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
and we have fund balance. I mean, we, with the numbers that Anthony has projected, we aren't negative fund balance until 27, 28. So we'd be
Got time.
okay as long as but we
Yeah.
need to act sooner rather
Yeah.
than later, and because that would be.
I will gladly pay a little extra tax.
As Sean said, once you show them the number, I mean, the numbers are pretty self-explanatory, and we always have.
Myself,
yeah.
it is expensive. Because, if three of us have Republic on the street and
Yep.
nobody else does, they're gonna charge them more.
And that's another thing, we have that in our business, with the business, it's tough, like before, for years, Marietta. Trash, we had maybe 7 or 8 trash haulers on Marietta parking lot, and we would get somebody dump trash at 2 AM, glass bottles, and we couldn't figure out who it was. And we consolidated that. Well, we had to provide 3 years notice, because I don't know if anyone remembers, the county tried to put a new hauler on it, they got sued, they lost, and the courts determined as long as you give 3 years. We ended up saving the businesses on the Marietta parking lot significant amount of money. I thought I was gonna get a lot of pushback. Penzi Spices, for example, was getting double billed. Their corporate office in Madison, Wisconsin was paying, and then so was their local office. There was Las Palmas, I'll say their name because they're not here anymore.
yeah,
They had no trash. They were just using everybody else's trash. There were a number of issues there. And we really did that when we expanded the Marietta parking lot. We essentially had to get rid of all the dumpsters. And so it is nice to have one hauler, because just from if we didn't do that, we would have trash trucks running up and down the city
Yeah,
daily and then you'd also have somebody supposed trash out. You would never know what's going on. It's very advantageous to do it once. Plus you get an economies of scale.
No one was recycling
Correct.
back in the day because
And now they-
they would have taken up I collected like 20 businesses in my recycling dumpster because you'd have 20 more dumpsters taking up 20 more parking spaces.
Right.
And,
Yeah, I remember when we did that. That's.
You know, we won a Muni Award. It's out in the thing and it was for environmental. And the interesting thing about it is it dramatically made it better from an environmental standpoint with all the recycling we did. But it was principally because we were trying to get more parking spaces in there, but we accepted the award.
It's nice when it works both ways.
Yeah.
That'd be hard.
So we will begin to renegotiate that contract. We'll do some modeling, build towards a timeline for a potential public education campaign and outreach around something in the next couple of years to propose an increase on that. Before we close tonight, I just wanted to circle back to page 17 in our general fund. I think I noted on the first night. We are looking at about a $365,000 cushion before we propose an annual salary increase for our staff. I'm very committed to being able to increase staff salaries every year as a reflection, not only of the hard work they do, but keeping pace with the market. As a result, since you all have been so very generous and supportive through this process, I'm going to be looking at making additional cuts, proposing potentially some deferrals, some expenses in order to give us a little bit more cushion to be able to accommodate at least a 2.5% increase. So with draft 2, you'll see me having trimmed some things and moved some things in order to be able to facilitate that. So that'll be work I take on after tonight. You're expected to review this draft 2 on Tuesday night. I'll get that to you more than 24 hours before the meeting, but it's going to be a little bit close. So thanks for your patience with that, but there will be a memo that shows what adjustments I've made.
I also have a couple questions about the bonds. Are the firehouse bonds and process bonds, are those revenue bonds or general obligation?
General obligation.
And you mentioned it the other day. What was our rating?
AA, neutral,
Doubly stable.
stable. Yeah.
We were doubly negative. We moved up to doubly stable. In 2020. 2022, yes.
And
Good job.
so depending on the
Let's say good job.
Good job. For sure.
do you anticipate it's going to stay the same with the fund balance that we have?
I think it'll stay the same. It's, I mean, obviously, we're to dip into fund balance, right? And we are dipping into fund balance this year. We don't want to do that, but we didn't dip in for several years, which is one of the things, which is how we got back up to stable. We are showing that, we have a projection that we won't be dipping in for several more years. So I think we'll be able to explain why we dipped in this year and why we aren't planning on dipping in for the next several years. So we'll have a Moody's call. We'll get a Moody's rating when we go out for these bonds. We'll know what our new bond rating will be, but I think I can easily explain it. And I think I would think that we'd be able to say it's stable.
What kind of return are they providing on these bonds?
We don't know yet.
Yeah, we have.
We haven't gone out for bid yet. We haven't sold them or anything. We haven't gotten any kind of, we're gonna do a competitive bidding process for those. So we are currently in the process. We have a bid out right now for a financial advisor to go out and to run the competitive bid for it. They will do the competitive bid. We will make sure that they are analyzing and comparing apples to apples for all the bids. So that way we aren't missing something and saying, oh, this is a better bid for us when it's really not. So we can get the best return for us on those bonds.
Typically, they all charge us about the same fee that.
Financial advisors?
Yeah.
Yes, generally, I've only seen them all kind of be right around the same amount, but I haven't done competitive bond process or had a financial advisor for a competitive bond process in about 10 years. So, things could have changed in 10 years, but last 10 years or 10 years ago, it was about 6 or 7. But we're gonna go ahead and look at them all and see, and we'll review them. We'll get those bids back on the 24th. So we'll review them then, and then I think the plan is to have a recommendation for council.
June 11th.
After reviewing them all.
Excuse me.
I was thinking that they're gonna be revenue bonds since they're back with revenue from the proposition.
Yeah, but they're all general.
Speaking of propositions, I received unbelievably good bids for our capital improvement projects. You can allow us to do
Yeah, I was gonna do
more roads than I anticipated. It's
surprisingly little.
yeah, it's unbelievable. We actually had to double check with them on their numbers to make sure it was right, and they've worked with us for 4 years in a row, and they're an excellent
What's changed?
contractor.
Have the material costs coming down?
Well, it's also everything's coming down.
We're slowing down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a big way.
Work in general is slowing down.
Yeah.
Everybody's catching up in
They're
the
not
industry.
adding as much.
Still, though, we had 3 other bidders, and two of the 3 have done work in town, and they were right around our estimates, even though we knew materials were coming down. I'm not gonna complain.
Yeah, Spencer's good. They do good.
But yeah, but prices are starting to come down. now, thanks.
Yeah,
Not,
but
not like
not
we'd
this-
like, but
not-
they're
not
coming
this-
down a little bit.
I'm
We're happy.
very happy about it.
Take a little bit of a dip.
They were so high 2 years ago, they had no place else to go but down. It got
Yeah.
insane.
Okay. Well, if we're finished, a motion to adjourn?
Missing on both sides.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Is anybody going to continue on?